You know, this guy, Hussein, I used to work with, so he comes to the car wash like at 12. We wash cars together, and at that time, Dairy Queen was a big deal, you know. And so my brother goes and gets like 3 meals, and we sit and eat. And he just came to say a quick hello. And then my mom and my dad come to the car wash. They say, Hussein, let's go to the house. We'll have some dinner. He says, yeah, okay, let's go. And his wife was teaching at Sierra College. And then one day, he calls her and says, I'm at Sabzavari's house, just come there. And she was a little late. And so Hussein was outside in the street, just walking, looking for a car. And then she shows up. And then she looks at him and says, Hussein, what are you doing out? I was waiting for you, you worried me. You were worried about me? Now, they had been married for like 10 years, 20 years, you know. And the point I'm trying to make, once you become very self-involved, like you read and you write and you think, because these are very self-involving engagements, you know. It's all about you and your thoughts. You're your best companion. Even when you get married, your wife or your husband feels sometimes that you're not really there as much for them. There is something about you that's never present when you're with them. And so she was kind of shocked that after 20 years of being married with this man, that she had always found him to be somewhat detached, but on this occasion, he was actually concerned, and it kind of surprised her. And the point I'm trying to make is that once you become very self-involved, like the Buddha, like Jesus, like Socrates, you're not really there invested in people as much. And so their presence, their absence, it's not going to bother you. You will be a lousy companion. So you don't want to do that. You want to be right there, because the relationship is immensely valuable and meaningful. Of course, I'm joking. Yeah.
Oh, why are real reflections always painful? I mean, if you really look back, every time it's painful. Most people, I guess, they get over it, but it just never goes away. Is there some kind of subtlety you got to do with that? Or is it just always going to just recurring in your head?
So there are two things. There is a sort of reflection that life creates for you. You're not really in the business or the habit of reflecting about things. Let's just say you happen just to be a goofball, and then you get to be 35, 36, 40, and all of a sudden, without any warning, you wake up and you look around and you say, what the hell? Why do I feel this way? My life seems so empty and meaningless and all that. Where did time go? How did I ever get to be like 40? There was a movie, I think Michael Douglas played with a few other really good actors. Anyways, he's about to marry this 30-year-old, he's 70, and his friends keep telling him that he's too old for this woman, that he should let her go so she could find someone her own age, and he should find someone close to his own age. And come to find out that he's getting married to this young woman because he wants to remain relevant. He wants to feel as if he is young. And at a certain point, there is Morgan Freeman in the living room in the hotel, in the room. And Michael Douglas all of a sudden screams and says, how did it happen? I was just 20 a couple days ago. I'm now 70, you know? So you begin to reflect, and that is caused by life, you know? And one of the nice things about life is that first, it blitz you with all sorts of garbage that you got to do on a daily basis. Take your daughter to school, wash her clothes, wash dishes, make food, talk to your friends, take a class or 2 or 3 or 4. Be around ridiculous people and talk about ridiculous things. You're completely engaged. You know, you're under an avalanche of responsibility. All of them create emotions, and you're entangled. And so like a robot, you know, buttons are placed inside you, buttons are pushed by life, and you just move. Once in a while, something about you says, pause, think, reflect. And it's that pause, that space between you and life. Whenever there is no space between you and an engagement, If there is no space, you just do it. If on the other hand there is space, you kind of look at your engagement through this space and you say, why am I doing it? And when you say, why am I doing it? You're questioning its value, you're questioning its relevance, you're questioning its depth, you're questioning in what ways it creates identity for you, which is ultimately your value as a human being. And when that space appears, it is painful, and it is because of pain that you begin to think. It's not the other way around. There is a glitch in the system. It's like a virus all of a sudden enters into life, and your program is not functioning well. You're washing dishes, but all of a sudden you turn off the water. Maybe you're one of those climate freaks, whatever the case may be. Maybe you're saying, why am I washing dishes? I want to go for a walk, or something. So that's one way that reflection comes about. Now, the problem with life creating reflection for you is that it does it so infrequently. And when it does, you don't really know what to do with it. It saddens you, disappoints you, depresses you. It makes you feel very lonely and very isolated. You may be around thousands of people, but nevertheless, you kind of walk away kind of hopeless. There is another way that reflection comes about is find the Malcolm X. He doesn't care about children. He doesn't care about having a wife. He doesn't care about washing dishes. He doesn't care about going to school. He has access to the bigger picture of life. He is concerned about black people. He's concerned about white people and black people. Ultimately, he's concerned about people. Then he's concerned about society. Ultimately, he's concerned about justice and fairness. And you realize that in the presence of Malcolm X, almost everything that you do is irrelevant. He forces you to think. And he doesn't really need to tell it to you. Just his presence. If, for example, you've read a few things of Malcolm X and all of a sudden he was to rise from the dead and come to this class, just standing here, you looking at just his physical body, you will feel bad. And you say, Malcolm, my daughter goes to school. I don't really know in this particular culture what will become of her. Do you have any suggestions? And he'll say, yeah, just take her out. We have a commune. Have her come and stay with us. You too. And you realize from that point on, your life no longer belongs to you. You have to live a very responsible, reflective life. Now, that particular kind of reflection is given to you by someone who's been there, who's done that, who's lived in life, who's lived outside of life, and now comes back to life to kind of beautify to some extent. Now, that's the sort of reflection that's valuable, but it's very, very, very painful, because if Malcolm was to walk into your life, you would lose the ability to laugh, to have fun, unless you consider joy and fun as part of working towards justice, getting rid of homelessness. That's like being engaged every single day for 10, 15 hours a day. That's like living in a cult where you have no room to be selfish. At every corner, someone smacks you. If you've ever visited a Zen monastery, like a good ones, not the cheap ones, here. First, they only accept a few people. It's not like an Eckhart Tolle or Jordan Peterson where you can buy tickets and just go in there and sit like an idiot. They interview you. It's a very rigorous thing. And they say, okay. And then you have to wake up very, very early in the morning, like 3. You have to run around a little bit. Usually in the wintertime, it's freezing. And then you have to sit. And you can't make any movements. If you do, someone with a bamboo stick will hit you 3 times on the right shoulder, 3 times on the left shoulder. And it's called the stick of compassion. And what you realize is without an external force, someone from the outside looking at you, seeing your flaws, and then reprimanding you, you will never have the right kind of reflection. And when you get into the habit of reflecting, you really become narcissist in the way that the only thing that matters for you for the first maybe 30, 40, 50 years of your life is you want to think well. You want to know how to think well. And then you want to know how to express those thoughts in language, perhaps, you know. And then that's a good amount of years you spending time by yourself. And when you get into life, life really doesn't have very much power over you. It doesn't mean that you're not going to feel the stings of loneliness or pain of various shades, you know. But for the most part, you'll be quite self-sufficient. If you're talking about the slings and arrows of life that create reflection, Freud said it right. No one is exempt. If on the other hand, you want to become like a Sigmund Freud, from the time you wake up in the morning to the time you go to sleep, you're always thinking and reflecting about why human beings are such scumbags. Now that's a good, sad, meaningful life, with lots of things to discover. It's a good life. I mean, you like to hurt yourself. You like to punish yourself. That's why you come to this class. You could be in bed. You could be doing other classworks, but no, you choose to come here. You like reflection, just not very often, because it's painful. It disrupts your life. Watch the movie The Matrix. You know, most of us enjoy taking the blue pill. You can wake up in your bed, you know, you can think whatever about yourself. But Morpheus really wakes you up, and you realize that, yes, you thought you knew Marxism, but no, you don't. You thought you knew what it means to be a human being. No, you don't. And he trains you. And it's usually hands-on combat training. In theory, everything is okay. In application, they'll always fail, always. Isn't that true, Mauricio? Good job.
Well, to be honest, I'm always trying to control that. I'm always trying to control the liberties, basically, because that's what they are.
Yeah. Yeah. You're saying hello, or you have a question?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So basically, what what Kevin said is what you were saying. Basically, the only real way that totally different from that. So basically, the only way we can really reflect on ourselves is to basically think about how it would be in a different way. Like you said with the blue pill, we can take that blue pill and just be in our bed, laying down, doing whatever. But
you don't have to. You don't have to take the blue pill. It comes with just being born. It comes naturally. It's the red pill that you have to willingly take. And sometimes it's not really up to you. Someone you love dies. You go into a relationship, with any relationship, with a good amount of expectations, and it doesn't pan out well. So there are moments where life disappoints you. There are moments where you disappoint yourself, and that causes a great amount of reflection, causes a good amount of pain. And then you got to figure things out. You know, and the more complex the situation is, the more complex the body of the pain. You know, it's like your body. That's what pain is, the body. And you have to kind of cut it open like a good surgeon and just figure out where you need to go and what you need to look at. And if you have the tools to fix it. The more simple things are, you know, the easier it is to fix. The more complicated. So. I'm sorry, I'm not very good at listening.
I suck at explaining too, so
No, it wasn't really well, it is your fault. Yeah, it can't be my fault. Yeah. Any Wolf?
Well, it sounds like, regardless, it seems like, well, one of my questions was like, how do we find the right tools? Because I feel like we talked about.
Oh, you don't?
You don't?
No. No, I mean, you just got to go to a shop and buy like DeWalt. The idea of you sitting home and getting all the components and making a tool yourself, that's ridiculous. Unless you have a lot of knowledge and you're a good mechanic. You know, but most of us are good at anything. And if you're not good at anything, there isn't much that you and I can make. I mean, if your entire life has been revolving around wrong thinking, or at least incomplete, unfinished thoughts, you know, why the hell at the age of 35 or 40 or 50 or even 20 would you want to start like building a house based on unfinished tools? You know, why not just give yourself to someone who can teach you how to build a house? I mean, we do this all the time. I mean, you have students. I mean, imagine if a newcomer was to come to you and say, just give me the needle. Let me just tattoo this person. What? You're going to kill him. You know, they want a frog on their forehead. You're going to like tattoo a unicorn. You know, be a good student for, hello? Be a good student for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Once you have become somewhat proficient, then yeah, you can be on your own, open your shop, and then tattoo frogs on people's foreheads all day long. But for now, just keep your mouth shut, keep your ears open, and just pay attention. The difficulty of that is, it's really, 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 really difficult to give your body, your mind, and your emotions to another human being to direct. And it happens at such an early stage. I mean, the moment you have a 2-year-old, and every time you grab a spoon to feed her or him, they're going to slap your hand away. I mean, this desire for freedom, independence, autonomy, you know, you willing, guiding your own movement. It happens at such an early age. You know, and so the idea at some point, I mean, that's why love is so devastating at the same time, so joyous, because for the first time you give everything about you to the other person, you know, except that the sort of kind of relationship we fall into are a little, you know, infantile and idiotic and those things. You know, there are a couple of movies. The best one perhaps is The Matrix. If you don't like sci-fi movies, watch The Last Samurai. You have a guy, you know, he's a yes man. He says yes to his captain. He kills a lot of Native Americans. There is a moment of reflection. He doesn't know what to do with all the things that he has done in the past. There's a lot of pain inside him. So since he doesn't have tools, he drinks it away. He becomes a drunk. But because he used to be a good soldier, he gets recruited. And then he gets captured by the samurai clan. And they train him. And they don't train him by having him sit and talking to him. And that's what good teachers really do, good communities do. That you become part of the community. You wash the dishes. You plant rice. You do all sorts of things. And slowly you realize you're changing from inside. And then you begin to fight your own people. No different than Dances with the Wolves. That the soldier who was white refuses to speak English when he gets captured, you know. And I think that's the only way you can create changes. There is no other way. I don't think books are going to help. Workshops are not going to help. YouTube is not going to help. None of those things are going to help, depending on what exactly it is you want change, you know. If you want a complete transformation, and I'm not quite sure what that means, but if you come to a place at a certain age where you realize your life just smells bad, you know, the idea of you just changing parts of it is not going to work for you. You really just have to change the whole thing. And you're not equipped. You don't have the proper tools. So you need to find someone who's been in that business for a while. And this is about anything. It can be about tattooing. It can be about building a house. It can be about teaching someone philosophy. It doesn't really matter. But what you need is you need to be a good student. And that takes a lot of years in making. You can't just say, I want to be a student. It doesn't work that way. I had a student in one of my philosophy classes. This is like 10 years ago. She had a dream and she said, Amir, I was in, you know, class period. And she says, can I tell you a dream I had yesterday? I said, sure. So she tells me the dream, and then we talk about the dream and say, I want to be your student, she says. So, okay, great, fine, good job. You know, and that's not the way it works. you have this assumption that you can be a student, but that assumption has to be examined and tested, and then you realize you're not really a good student. Then if there is enough intimacy between you and the person you're working with, then hopefully with some more beating up, something about you just empties, and hopefully good things can go inside you. It's going to take you some time to process what now lives inside you, understand it really well, and then apply it. Once you're there, then you no longer need to work with anyone. You can be on your own. One of the best teachers is death. It really just makes the whole thing irrelevant. And it's, you can either get old or you can get sick, and then you can reflect, or you could be like a Leo Tolstoy. Once in a while you wake up and you say, if I was to die, will my life amount to anything? Will anyone remember me, think of me? Or like Gilgamesh, some 5, 6, 10,000 years ago. You say, no, my life doesn't mean anything. And then you go on this quest to figure out that, what you need to do to make your life relatively meaningful and livable. I mean, the real vulture is life. It'll take everything away. And for those of us who have kids, we'll tell you. They don't leave an ounce of energy. By the time it's 6 p.m., you have nothing left. And that's when the screaming begins. Now, it doesn't, again, mean things are hopeless. It just means that you have to be, I suppose, clever enough, maybe ready enough, be in the right place in life to be able to see. So, Joshua?
Back to the conversation you're having here, it made me think that people hear what they want to hear, and people that are speaking often have a hard time communicating what they're trying to say. Is there any hope for us in that?
So if I was to speak about that particular question as a parent, and you're a father, and Kevin is a father, I guess you're the only parents in this room. There are stages in our desire to communicate things with to people. You see something, and as someone who has a bit more experience, hopefully, in life, you realize that the end result could be devastating. And remember, the more intimate your relationship with the person, the more you're going to feel. Okay? So you rise up and you say, okay, let me see if I can fix this. Now, the crudest tool that we have is language. Because every single person comes from a different background, and every background creates its own meaning and definition to language, to words. And add to it the fact that we have the 7 deadly sins inside us. All of our kids are proud of themselves, who they are, what they are. They are lustful for their greed. They're very ambitious in many ways. And just in case they don't get things their way, they become very angry. And that continues until the day you die. So you have lots of things to kind of wrestle with. And then they're going to be, and you're not going to have children who are simply going to listen. I mean, the story of the prodigal son, where one son says yes to everything that the father says, you don't see that very often. And even if you have a son who says yes to you as a parent all the time, they don't really have very much experience in life. And then when they walk into life, life will devastate them, because they've always been protected. Okay? It's kind of like the Buddha. You've never thought about death, you've never thought about old age, you've never thought about sickness, and all of a sudden when something tragic happens to you, you say, I don't want my life. You walk away from the whole thing. That's not what you want. You want to it's kind of like the kids, they sit on the ground and they eat dirt. And it's good for the immune system. It toughens them up. Versus parents who say, oh no, honey, don't walk. You need to walk on air, And the moment they land, even for a second, they kind of get sick and they remain in bed for 5 days. There comes a point where you try to talk about something to someone, about something that you think is important, that they don't really see. But they're 20, they're 30, you're 60. You know what it means to be 30, and you know what it means to be students. They have no idea what it means to be 60. They're going to school, you're done with school. They're looking for a house, you have a house. They're looking for a car, you have a car. In other words, they want all the things that you have. And because you have them, you see things. There is so much clarity about you. They're consumed, entangled by the desires and the emotions created by the desires. They can't see. And because they can't see, they can't hear. Now, what usually happens when you speak to anybody, the 10 words that you say to them, maybe they can kind of just hear, not listen, just hear. Maybe 2 of them, 2 words. And they only hear those 2 words because they can find themselves somehow relating only to those 2 words. Okay? Now they're going to be missing 10 words, but they have 2 words. So they're missing a good chunk of what you're telling them. Okay? Now, they say, so by justice, Dad, do you mean ABCD, or by school, by education? And you say, no, that's not what I mean. And all of a sudden you realize it's getting more muddier. You know, you have more explaining to do. To the point that everything just gets very, very confusing for you, for her, and then frustration enters. And you begin to realize that she's beginning to move her body a little bit more, which means she wants her to shut up so she can go back to her room and play video games or something. But because you care for your daughter or for your son or for your wife or husband, you begin to talk more about the stuff. But you guys are approaching it from 2 very, very different angles, 2 very, very different concerns. Your approach, your relation with time, relationship, everything is different. And somehow you want to jam your concerns into this kid or into this person, but it doesn't go. And then you, even though you've told your son not to come home after midnight, he still comes home around 2. And he smells bad, he looks bad, he talks bad. And he expects to come home to a father who's going to be angry, screaming. But this time, after many tries, you kind of just look at your son who walks in at 2 in the morning, you just look at him. And you get yourself up and you go to the bedroom. And your son doesn't know what that means. He was expecting you to scream, but no reaction from you except to just go to the bedroom. And something about him cracks open. He goes into his bedroom and he's just, you know. And you realize there comes a certain stage in life. The best type of communication is the absence of language. Something about you must align with something about me. And it's not going to be through language because it creates more confusion unless I have accepted you as someone who has a far superior intellect and a richer life experience. If I've come to that place of acceptance, then I will listen to you. And I will rack my brain to try to understand what you're saying, but I can't. You know, and you'll be a complete mystery. And that's good. That's a good place to be. And after 5, 10, 15, 20 years, I slowly begin to understand a few things. And after 20 years of being around you, I realize I am looking at the world. I mean, you're dead now, but I see the world through your eyes now. I've spent so much time with you, your philosophy of life, the way you speak, your mannerism, everything about you now lives inside me. Yeah. There's a movie with Bruce Willis. It came out some years ago. It's called Tears of the Sun, I think. It's about Americans going to certain parts of Africa and rescuing some of their own people. There is a certain scene in the movie where there is music. They're in the forest running or walking. And there is this guy singing. in certain dialect. And he has a raspy voice and it's rich. I don't even understand what the hell he's saying. But the sort of emotions that his voice and the way he sings inspires, that I often might find myself completely sad and depressed in a good way, where it forces me to reflect and maybe write a couple lines of poetry or go to the piano and play some songs and sing. There is this young girl, I accidentally just YouTubed her. Her name is Emma Koch, K-O-K. She's French. Just type 15-year-old singer Emma Koch, K-O-K. It's about maybe a 5-minute song. I have no idea what she's singing. She is amazing. She is devastating. She really, really is. And you realize, well, you don't really need to understand language to feel. And you don't need to respect the person you're looking at to feel. There is something about their presence. There is something about the way they are, that without any historical knowledge, they move you into the present moment and they capture you. And you realize that whenever you find yourself in the presence of someone who knows what they're doing and they're really good at it, you're really in the presence of like Venus, Aphrodite, someone who is absolutely beautiful, the embodiment of perfection, you know. And you don't even really need to understand what they're saying. Just being around that person is like you've entered the Garden of Eden. You don't need anything else. You're very, very sufficient in that particular space, even though it has nothing, you know. You guys should check her out. 15-year-old singer. Yeah, if I was tech savvy, I would, but I wouldn't know what to do with that except to just bring my tools and take it home. You know, I suppose you could use language to inspire, and then hopefully that inspiration can create a good amount of attraction where the other person can kind of long for you. And then if you have depth, that person will stick around. If they come to realize you're a counterfeit, they'll just leave. You know. So. Well, sorry to say, class is over. We have a anyone else before we go home? For those of you who came in late, Wednesday will be our last day. We'll have, I think, our final on Monday. You don't need to come here. I'll be in my office. If you want to come and ask questions, it's best if you don't. Yeah, just don't come. But if you do, you know, have your timer on, maybe 2 minutes. Or if you think that's too much, just email me your question. Kevin?
Do we need to bring you a bag of coffee?
For what?
I don't know, last year was a bag of coffee.
No, you know,
You got a lot of coffee this year.
yeah, you know, I'm running out. No, it's really, no. Yeah, I'd like a bag of coffee if you can steal the bag. If you have to pay for it, it's no good.
Oh, the accent.
That's
I'm just joking. No coffee. Even though it will help your grade, I have no doubt. But no coffee. Even though it'll help your final grade. Anyone else before we go? Yeah.
all those bags that gave me on that desk. I never said it off.
Wow, that's extra credit right there.
1 year small.
All right, people. See you Wednesday. Thank you.